My best friend told my crush I wear push-up bras to get his attention as a joke, so I told a joke too. She hasn't left her house in 3 weeks. Ranai and I had been best friends since 6th grade, the kind of friendship that everyone thought was unbreakable, the kind that people looked at and assumed would last forever. She was the pastor's daughter who knew exactly how to smile at adults while breaking every rule behind their backs, who could quote scripture to her parents at breakfast and then curse like a sailor by lunch, who had perfected the art of being two completely different people depending on who was watching. I was the girl who apologized when people hurt me, who said it's fine when it wasn't, who never fought back, who let people walk all over me with a smile plastered on my face because I didn't know how to do anything else. Ranai loved that about me. Absolutely loved it. She'd share her darkest secrets with me late at night, whispering confessions about the boys she'd kissed and the rules she'd broken, knowing with absolute certainty that I'd never tell a soul, that her secrets were safer with me than they were locked in a vault. She'd push boundaries constantly, testing how far she could go, how much she could get away with, knowing deep down that I'd never push back, that I'd absorb whatever she threw at me like a human punching bag designed specifically for her convenience. She knew I was safe, that no matter what she did, no matter how far she pushed, I'd take it without complaint, without retaliation, without ever standing up for myself. That's why she felt so comfortable making her little joke, so confident that there would be no consequences, no pushback, no price to pay for her cruelty. For context, and this is important for understanding just how deeply she betrayed me, I've had a crush on Oscar since 2nd grade, the kind of crush that never really goes away, that just becomes part of who you are. We rode the bus together from kindergarten through 8th grade, sitting in seats that smelled like vinyl and childhood, our shoulders bumping with every turn. He was the boy who shared his fruit snacks with me without being asked, who noticed when I forgot my lunch and would slide half of his sandwich across the cafeteria table, who let me borrow his jacket when it rained and never asked for it back until the next day. I'd loved him since I was 7 years old. A quiet, persistent love that had been growing in my chest for nearly a decade. Everyone knew it. It was the worst-kept secret in our entire social circle. My mom knew and would give me knowing looks whenever his name came up in conversation. His mom knew and would always smile at me in that warm, hopeful way that made me think maybe, just maybe, she'd be happy if something happened between us. And especially Ranai knew, because I'd told her everything, shared every tiny interaction, analyzed every smile and every word he'd ever said to me. She used to tease me about writing Mrs. Oscar in my notebooks, which I absolutely had done in 8th grade, the letters carefully practiced in different fonts during boring math classes. When Oscar's family moved across town freshman year, I was completely devastated. Like a piece of my heart had been physically removed from my chest. I cried for days, mourned the loss of seeing him every morning on the bus, felt like the universe was being particularly cruel. When he came back junior year, transferring to our school because of redistricting or his parents' jobs or fate or whatever you want to call it, I thought it was a sign, a second chance, the universe correcting its earlier mistake. Ranai knew exactly how I felt when Oscar showed up at youth group that first Wednesday night back, walking through the church basement doors like some kind of answered prayer. I'd spent an hour on the phone with her earlier that day, telling her about how he smiled at me in the hallway between 3rd and 4th period, how maybe this was finally our chance, how after all these years of waiting and hoping maybe something could actually happen between us. But Ranai had her own secret, one that I'd been keeping for her faithfully, one that had become a regular part of my weekly routine. She'd been sneaking around with different boys for over a year, rotating through them like some kind of dating carousel, and I was always her cover story, her alibi, her get-out-of-jail-free card. Her parents were the strictest in our church, the kind of strict that made other strict parents look lenient. No dating until 18, absolutely no being alone with boys ever, no secular music, no movies above PG-13, no makeup beyond lip gloss. Every Wednesday for 2 years, I'd been her Bible study partner, while she went on dates, lying to her parents with increasing ease, telling them we were studying scripture when really I was sitting alone at home while she was out with whatever boy had caught her attention that week. First it was Logan from math class, a relationship that lasted 2 months before she got bored. Then Kendall from youth group, which was ironic and dangerous, but lasted even shorter. Then some college guy she met at Starbucks who had a car and took her to restaurants her parents would never approve of. I'd covered for her 47 times, and yes, I'd counted every single one, each lie adding to a running total in my head. I did it because she was my best friend, and that's what friends do. That's what I told myself anyway. That friendship meant sacrifice, meant putting yourself at risk for the people you loved. 3 weeks ago at Oscar's teammates' party, a gathering that half the junior class had shown up to in some basketball player's basement, I finally worked up the courage to talk to Oscar alone, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone in the room could hear it. Ranai was in the bathroom, probably touching up her makeup or texting one of her secret boyfriends, and for once I had an opportunity without her hovering presence. I made some stupid joke about our old bus driver, Mr. Henderson, who used to yell at us for being too loud, and Oscar actually laughed, not the polite kind of laugh you give someone to be nice, but a real genuine laugh that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. For 30 seconds, maybe 45, it felt like we were kids again, like we were back on that bus with our whole lives ahead of us and no complications. Renai came back and saw us laughing together, saw the way Oscar was leaning toward me, the way we were in our own little bubble. Her face changed instantly, transformed from friendly to something cold and calculated. That's when she announced to everyone within earshot, her voice cutting through the music and conversation. At least I don't need push-up bras to get his attention like someone we all know. She looked right at me when she said it, making absolutely sure everyone knew who she was talking about. Right? Remember when you bought 3 different colors hoping he'd notice? The room went silent for a beat, and then Oscar laughed the hardest, a sound that felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I pulled her outside immediately, my face burning with humiliation, my hands shaking with a combination of embarrassment and rage I'd never felt before. What the hell was that about? I demanded, my voice barely controlled. Ranai shrugged, examining her nails like she hadn't just destroyed me in front of the one person whose opinion mattered most. Relax, it was just a joke, she said casually, like publicly humiliating me was no big deal. You know how I feel about him, I said, my voice breaking. She finally looked at me, and her expression was cold, colder than I'd ever seen it, like she was looking at a stranger instead of someone who'd been her best friend for years. So? You never actually dated him. It's not like you have dibs. She stepped closer, invading my space, her voice dropping to something almost threatening. Besides, I like him too. And unlike you, I can actually get him without padding. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Couldn't process that my best friend, the person I'd protected and lied for and covered for countless times, was saying these things to me. The bullying started immediately, like she'd given everyone permission to tear me apart. Boys would throw balled-up tissues at my chest in class, hitting me in the middle of lectures while teachers pretended not to notice. Need more stuffing? They'd ask, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. Girls would corner me in the bathroom, forming a semicircle around me while I was washing my hands, demanding I prove I was real, like my body was public property subject to verification. Teachers saw it happening, saw the tissues being thrown, heard the comments, but did nothing because it was just kids being kids, because addressing it would be uncomfortable and easier to ignore. One boy, emboldened by the lack of consequences, actually tried to grab my chest to check for tissues in the middle of the hallway until I slapped him hard enough that his head snapped to the side, and even then I was the one who got called to the principal's office for violence. Ranai watched it all while holding Oscar's hand in the hallway, the two of them together like some kind of perfect couple, like she hadn't orchestrated my torture, like she wasn't responsible for the worst 3 weeks of my life. She'd post Bible verses about kindness and loving your neighbor on Sunday, getting likes from church members who thought she was such a sweet girl, then laugh when someone threw tissues at me on Monday, her hand covering her mouth like she was trying to hide her amusement but not trying very hard. 3 weeks of living hell while she lived her perfect double life, dating my crush while maintaining her image as the innocent pastor's daughter. Now it's Wednesday, Bible study night, the night I'd covered for her more times than I could count without really trying. Ranai just texted her parents that we're studying together, using our established routine, banking on my continued silence and complicity. Then she headed to Oscar's house for what I can only assume is another date, another secret rendezvous, another betrayal. I'm sitting in my room now, staring at my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. Ranai's mom's number is right there in my contacts, has been there for years, saved as Mrs. Patterson, with a little heart emoji that now feels deeply ironic. After 3 weeks of hell, 3 weeks of humiliation and bullying and watching her parade my crush around like a trophy she won by destroying me, I'm done covering for her. I pick up the phone and dial, my heart racing but my hands steady for the first time in weeks. Her mom answered on the second ring, her voice warm and trusting. Hi, sweetie. How's Bible study going? Actually, I wanted to tell you a joke, I said calmly, my voice steadier than I expected. Ranai's not here. She's at Oscar Miller's house. Just kidding. Well, actually, not kidding. The line went dead immediately, and I could picture her face, the shock, the anger, the betrayal. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with texts from everyone at Oscar's house, my notifications going crazy with messages and calls. Apparently, he hosted a party, a whole gathering of people who were about to witness something spectacular. Ranai's parents had burst in, her mom still in house slippers, her dad still wearing his pastoral collar from whatever church event he'd been at. They found Ranai and Oscar on his couch, her shirt unbuttoned, his hands under her bra, the same bra she'd mocked me for wearing, the same type of bra she'd used as ammunition to destroy my reputation and my self-esteem. Her mom dragged Ranai out by her arm while she sobbed and begged, pleading for understanding, for mercy, for another chance. Her dad was shouting about deception and sin in front of everyone, his voice carrying through Oscar's house, every word about trust and lies and disappointment echoing off the walls. 30 teenagers watched the pastor's perfect daughter get hauled out half-dressed. Update. My phone starts buzzing like crazy, message after message lighting up the screen so fast I can barely read them. Someone named Jake sends a video of Renai's dad dragging her to their car, her face red and covered in tears. Ashley texts that Oscar's mom was screaming at his dad about supervision and responsibility. Connor sends 3 laughing emojis followed by, "Holy shit, that was insane." Katie writes, "You're my hero," with a bunch of fire emojis. But then there's Emma's text saying, "That was really harsh," and Connor's message asking, "Was that really necessary?" I sit on my bed staring at all these messages, feeling this weird twist in my stomach that's part victory and part something else I don't want to name. The messages keep coming for the next hour. People describing how Renai wouldn't stop crying in the car, how her dad's face was purple with anger, how Oscar just sat on his couch looking shocked while his parents apologized over and over to the Pattersons. Someone sends a photo of Renai's shirt still unbuttoned as her mom pushed her into their minivan. I save that one without really knowing why. Around midnight, the messages finally slow down, and I try to sleep, but keep checking my phone every few minutes to see if anyone else has sent something new. The next morning, I walk into school and immediately feel every single pair of eyes lock onto me. The hallway goes quiet for just a second, then erupts into whispers that follow me like a shadow from my locker to first period. Groups of girls huddle together, their heads turning to watch me pass, their mouths moving in urgent whispers. Boys I've never talked to before nod at me with these knowing smirks, like we're sharing some kind of secret. But the tissue throwing has completely stopped. Not a single balled-up piece of paper flies at me during second period math. The boys who spent 3 weeks mocking me now look away when I make eye contact, suddenly very interested in their textbooks or phones. Tyler, who threw tissues at me just yesterday, actually moves his backpack out of the aisle so I can walk past easier. The change is so sudden and obvious that it makes my skin feel weird, like I'm wearing someone else's body. By lunch, I'm sitting alone at my usual table in the corner, pushing food around my tray and trying not to look at anyone. That's when Maya Buckner appears with her lunch tray, asking if she can sit down. I barely know Maya. She's in my English class and sits 2 rows over, but I nod and she slides into the seat across from me. She tells me she always thought what Renai did was really cruel, that she wanted to say something but didn't know how to speak up without making things worse for me. We end up talking through the whole lunch period and she leans in close to tell me about 2 other people Renai hurt over the years. There was this girl named Sophie from youth group, who Renai convinced everyone was lying about being sick with mono, just because Sophie got more attention during the illness. And there was Connor from sophomore year, who Renai spread rumors about after he rejected her, saying he'd tried to touch her inappropriately when really he'd just said no to going out. Maya describes these patterns I never noticed because I was too close to see them clearly, too busy being Renai's best friend and cover story to realize she did this to other people too. After 6th period, I'm at my locker grabbing my biology textbook when Oscar appears beside me looking completely exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and his hair messy like he forgot to brush it. He asks if we can talk somewhere private, his voice quiet and urgent. We end up in the library study room, one of those small glass rooms in the back where the door closes but people can still see in. Oscar sits across from me at the small table and admits he had no idea about the bullying until people told him last night after everything happened. He seems really upset that Renai made that joke about me at the party, keeps running his hands through his hair and shaking his head. He tells me multiple people texted him last night describing the tissue throwing, the bathroom confrontations, all of it, and he looks sick about it. I watch his face carefully, trying to figure out if he's being honest or just feels guilty about getting caught. I tell him everything, the whole 3 weeks of hell that he apparently never noticed, despite walking past me in the hallways every single day. I describe the boys throwing tissues at my chest during class, hitting me while teachers looked the other way. I tell him about the girls cornering me in the bathroom, demanding I prove I was real, like my body was public property they had the right to inspect. I explain what it felt like watching him hold Renai's hand in the hallway while she laughed at my suffering, while she posted Bible verses on Sunday and mocked me on Monday. Oscar's face goes pale and he keeps saying he's sorry, that he would never have dated her if he'd known any of this was happening. But I can tell from the way his voice breaks when he says her name that part of him still has feelings for her despite everything, that whatever they had wasn't completely fake, even if it was built on lies and cruelty. Between classes, Corey Langley catches up with me near the science wing and quietly mentions that Oscar's parents are completely furious about the scene at their house last night. He explains that Oscar is grounded for having people over without permission, that his parents are talking about taking away his car and making him quit the basketball team. The whole situation has blown up way bigger than I expected, affecting people I never meant to hurt, creating problems I didn't think about when I made that phone call. Corey doesn't seem mad at me exactly, more like he's trying to give me information so I understand what's happening, but I can tell from his tone that he thinks I could have handled this differently. By Wednesday, Renai still hasn't come to the school, and the rumors are spreading like wildfire through every classroom and hallway. Some people say she's been sent to a religious boarding school in another state where they take troubled pastors' kids. Others insist she's just too embarrassed to show her face after being dragged out half-dressed in front of 30 people. Fletcher Ratliff from youth group texts me asking what really happened, saying the church community is buzzing with speculation and judgment. I realize that this isn't just school drama anymore. This has infected the entire church, with adults gossiping and taking sides and making assumptions about what kind of person Ranai really is versus what kind of person I am. The school counselor calls me in during fourth period, and I walk to her office feeling my stomach twist with nervousness. She's a middle-aged woman with kind eyes who tells me several students reported the bullying incidents and the administration needs to document what happened. I spend the next hour describing everything in detail: the tissue throwing that happened almost daily, the bathroom confrontations where girls surrounded me, and demanded proof: the boy who actually tried to grab my chest to check for tissues until I slapped him hard enough to leave a mark. I watch her face get more and more serious with each detail I share, her pen moving faster across her notepad, her expression shifting from concerned to angry to something that looks almost sad. She asks specific questions about which teachers saw the incidents, which students participated, whether I reported anything to adults before now. The counselor explains they're investigating the bullying and will be calling in the students who participated to get their statements and determine appropriate consequences. This makes me nervous because I know some of them will blame me for getting them in trouble, will see this as me being unable to take a joke, or overreacting to normal high school teasing. She also gently suggests that my method of handling the situation, while understandable given what I was going through, created complications that could have been avoided through proper channels. She doesn't say I was wrong exactly, but I can tell she thinks I should have come to her or another adult, instead of exposing Ranai so publicly and dramatically. Ranai finally returns to the school on Thursday, looking completely different from the girl who used to strut through these hallways like she owned them. No makeup on her face, not even the lip gloss her parents usually allowed. Her hair pulled back in a plain ponytail instead of the carefully styled waves she usually wore. She's wearing a loose gray sweater that hides her figure completely, the kind of modest clothing her parents probably picked out for her. She walks past me in the hallway without making eye contact, her eyes fixed on the floor like she's trying to make herself invisible. I notice Fletcher Ratliff walking beside her, staying close like a guard or escort, and I realize her parents don't trust her to be alone anymore, that they've assigned someone from youth group to make sure she goes straight to class without talking to anyone or causing more trouble. That night at youth group feels like walking into a room where everyone knows something happened, but nobody wants to say it out loud. I arrive early and grab a seat in the back corner, the same spot I've sat in for years, but tonight it feels different, exposed. Other kids filter in slowly, their eyes flicking between me and the door like they're waiting for something to happen. Ranai walks in exactly 3 minutes before the session starts. Fletcher still glued to her side like he's been assigned as her personal guard. She sits on the opposite side of the room, as far from me as physically possible in the small church basement, and keeps her eyes fixed on the floor. The youth group leader, a guy in his late 20s who usually talks about sports and makes terrible jokes, stands at the front looking uncomfortable. He opens his Bible and starts talking about forgiveness, about gossip, about how words can wound deeper than any physical weapon. Every single person in the room knows he's talking about what happened, about me calling Ranai's parents, about the scene at Oscar's house. My face gets hot and I can feel sweat forming on the back of my neck. He reads from Matthew about removing the plank from your own eye before pointing out the speck in someone else's. And I want to stand up and scream that Ranai spent 3 weeks making my life hell, that she betrayed me first, that I wasn't the one who started this. But I sit there silent, picking at my thumbnail until it bleeds, listening to him describe how Christians should handle conflict privately and with grace. The other kids steal glances at me and Ranai, their heads swiveling back and forth like they're watching a tennis match. When the lesson finally ends after what feels like hours, everyone rushes out faster than usual, nobody wanting to stick around for the awkward aftermath. I'm heading to my car in the parking lot, keys already in my hand, when I hear someone call my name. Mrs. Patterson is walking toward me, still wearing the cardigan she probably wore to church earlier. My stomach twists because I don't know if she's going to yell at me or thank me or what. She stops a few feet away and wraps her arms around herself even though it's not cold. She tells me she wanted to talk for a minute if that's okay. I nod because what else am I going to do? She says she's grateful I was honest with her about where Ranai really was, that she needed to know the truth about what her daughter had been doing. Her voice cracks a little when she talks about how devastated she is that Ranai was living this double life, lying to them for so long about so many things. But then her expression changes, gets a little harder, and she mentions that she wishes I had come to her sooner instead of covering for Ranai all those times. She doesn't say it meanly, but I can hear the question underneath her words, the unspoken accusation that I enabled this for 2 years before suddenly deciding to expose everything in the most public way possible. She asks why I kept lying for Ranai if I knew it was wrong, why I waited until I was hurt to finally speak up. I don't have a good answer, so I just stand there feeling smaller and smaller while she talks. She touches my shoulder and says she's not angry with me, that she understands I was in a difficult position, but that she hopes I'll think about how my choices affected the situation too. Then she walks back toward the church, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot feeling like the worst person alive. The drive home takes 15 minutes but feels longer because I can't stop replaying Mrs. Patterson's words in my head. She's right, and I know she's right, and that makes it so much worse. I did enable Ranai's behavior for 2 years, lying to her parents over and over, making it possible for her to sneak around and date whoever she wanted. I told myself I was being a good friend, that covering for her was what friendship required. But really, I was just too scared to say no, too afraid of losing her to stand up for what was right. And then when she finally hurt me badly enough, when she humiliated me in front of Oscar, and let everyone bully me for 3 weeks, I didn't try talking to her parents privately, or going to a school counselor, or handling it in any mature way. I just destroyed her in the most public, dramatic way I could think of, making sure her parents caught her in the worst possible situation in front of 30 witnesses. The satisfaction I felt watching those texts roll in, seeing people describe her getting dragged out crying, feels disgusting now. I pull into my driveway and sit in the car for 10 minutes, hands still gripping the steering wheel, trying to figure out when I became someone who could do something so cruel. My phone buzzes and I almost don't look at it because I can't handle any more drama tonight. But I check anyway because that's what you do when you're 17 and your phone buzzes. The message is from Paisley McKay, a girl from my English class who sits 2 rows over and who I've maybe spoken to 3 times total. She says she heard about what happened and wanted to check if I'm okay, that what I did took guts, but she hopes I'm handling everything all right. I stare at the message for a full minute before responding, asking her what she means. She suggests we video chat if I'm free, says she has some thoughts about the situation that might help. I'm curious enough and lonely enough that I agree, and 30 seconds later her face fills my phone screen. She's sitting in her bedroom with posters of bands I don't recognize on the walls behind her. She tells me she had a toxic best friend last year, someone who used her and manipulated her and made her feel crazy for being upset about it. She describes how hard it was to finally cut that person off, how everyone took the other girl's side at first, how she felt like she was drowning in guilt even though she knew she'd done the right thing. Hearing someone else describe similar feelings makes something loosen in my chest. We end up talking for 2 hours about toxic friendships and standing up for yourself and the difference between being assertive and being cruel. She doesn't tell me I was right or wrong, just listens and shares her own story and makes me feel less alone in this mess. When we finally hang up, it's past midnight, and I feel marginally better, like maybe I'm not the only person who's ever been in an impossible situation where every choice feels wrong. The next morning, the principal calls an assembly during second period, which everyone knows means something serious happened. We file into the auditorium and sit in our assigned sections while teachers line the walls looking stern. The principal takes the stage and starts talking about respect and bullying and the importance of treating our classmates with dignity. He describes incidents of students throwing objects at other students, of harassment in bathrooms, of physical intimidation in hallways. He never says anyone's name, but everyone in the room knows exactly what he's talking about, knows he means the tissue throwing and the girls cornering me and the boy who tried to grab me. I sink lower in my seat, feeling hundreds of eyes on me even though most people are probably just staring straight ahead. The principal announces that the school has a zero-tolerance policy for bullying, and that students found responsible for harassment will face serious consequences, including suspension. Several boys a few rows ahead turn around to glare at me, their expressions making it clear they blame me for whatever trouble they're about to be in. One of them mouths something I can't quite make out but looks threatening enough that my hands start shaking. The assembly ends with a reminder that anyone experiencing or witnessing bullying should report it immediately to a counselor or administrator. And I want to laugh at the irony since I reported the boy who grabbed me and got punished for slapping him while he got a warning. My phone buzzes during lunch with a text from Oscar asking if we can get coffee after school to talk. I agree because I'm curious what he wants to say, whether he's going to apologize or defend Renai or blame me for the mess. We meet at the coffee shop near school, one of those places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Oscar looks tired, with circles under his eyes like he hasn't been sleeping well. He orders us both drinks, and we sit at a corner table away from other people. He starts by saying he had no idea about the bullying until people told him after his party got busted. He seems genuinely upset about it, keeps running his hands through his hair and shaking his head. Then he admits something that makes my stomach flip. He says Renai manipulated him into dating her by making it seem like I wasn't interested in him romantically. She told him I was dating someone else, that I only saw him as a friend from childhood, that I'd specifically said I didn't want to ruin our friendship by making it romantic. Complete lies, every single word of it, lies I never got the chance to correct because I didn't even know she was saying them. Oscar looks sick talking about it, says he feels stupid for believing her version of everything without ever asking me directly. He explains that when Renai made that joke about the push-up bras at the party, he thought it was just friendly teasing between best friends, didn't realize it was cruel or that she was trying to humiliate me. I want to be angry at him for being so oblivious, but I can see he genuinely didn't understand what was happening. I pull out my phone and open my text messages with Renai, scrolling back through 2 years of conversations. I show Oscar the messages where she tells me about sneaking out to meet Logan, the ones where she describes making out with Kendall in his car, the detailed plans for meeting the college guy at restaurants across town. I show him every single time she used me as her alibi, every lie she told her parents with my help, every secret she trusted me to keep. Oscar's eyes get wider as he scrolls through the messages, seeing proof of how much of Ranai's life was completely fabricated. He keeps saying he can't believe it, that he had no idea she was capable of this level of deception. I point out the dates, show him that she was texting me about other guys while she was supposedly falling for him, that their entire relationship was probably just another game to her. He hands my phone back and leans back in his chair looking defeated. He tells me he feels like an idiot for not seeing through her act, for believing everything she said without question. I realize sitting there that we were both victims of her manipulation in different ways, that she played us against each other while lying to both of us. Oscar reaches across the table like he might take my hand, but then pulls back and the moment passes. We finish our coffee mostly in silence, both processing how thoroughly Ranai fooled everyone around her. The next day at the school, 3 boys get called to the principal's office during third period and don't come back. Word spreads fast that they've been suspended for the bullying incidents, for throwing tissues and making comments and creating a hostile environment. By lunch, their friends are shooting me death glares in the hallway, muttering about how I'm ruining people's lives over a joke. Someone mentions college applications and athletic scholarships and permanent records. I'm at my locker between 5th and 6th period when I notice something wrong. The word snitch is spray painted across the metal in drippy red letters, impossible to miss. My hands start shaking as I stare at it, knowing this means someone is angry enough to vandalize school property to send me a message. I have to report it because teachers are already noticing and asking questions, so I end up back in the principal's office explaining what happened. He looks concerned and promises to review security footage, but I can tell from his expression that this is just going to make things worse. He mentioned something about campus safety and keeping an eye on the situation, but his words feel empty. Walking back to class, I catch people whispering and pointing, and I realize the target on my back just got bigger. Some people think I'm brave for standing up to bullying, but plenty of others think I'm a snitch who got 3 boys suspended over nothing, who can't take a joke, who ruins lives because someone hurt my feelings. Paisley appears at my lunch table the next day without asking if she can sit down, just slides into the seat across from me with her tray. She starts talking about her weekend plans like we've been friends forever, not acknowledging the awkwardness or the stares from other tables. 2 of her friends join us a few minutes later, girls named Sophie and Jen, who I recognize from around school but have never really talked to. They don't ask invasive questions about what happened with Ranai, or the suspensions, or the spray paint on my locker. They just include me in their conversation about a movie they want to see, and a band coming to town next month. Sophie makes a joke that actually makes me laugh, the first real laugh I've had in weeks, and something tight in my chest loosens slightly. These girls are kind in a way that feels foreign after years of friendship with Ranai, kind without keeping score, without making me feel like I owe them something for their attention. They tell me about their favorite classes and complain about homework and ask what kind of music I like. Normal teenage stuff that doesn't revolve around drama or secrets or lies. By the end of lunch, Paisley has added me to their group chat and made plans for all of us to hang out this weekend. I realized sitting there that I never knew what healthy friendships actually looked like. Never understood that friends shouldn't make you feel like you're walking on eggshells or constantly trying to prove your loyalty. Fletcher texts me later that week with information I didn't ask for but probably needed to hear. He says Ranai's parents have put her in intensive counseling, 3 sessions a week with a therapist who specializes in teenage behavior issues. She's not allowed to go anywhere except school and church, no phone except for emergencies, no social media, no contact with boys including Oscar. Her parents have basically locked her down completely, determined to fix whatever they think is broken in her. Fletcher mentions that she's genuinely devastated, that she cries constantly about losing Oscar and her freedom and her reputation. Part of me feels vindicated hearing this, feels like she's finally facing consequences for years of manipulation and cruelty. But a bigger part of me feels guilty about how completely her life has fallen apart, how one phone call from me destroyed everything she'd carefully constructed. I think about her sitting in therapy sessions talking about her mistakes, sitting in her room with no phone and no freedom, sitting in classes where everyone knows what happened. I remember her face when her dad dragged her out of Oscar's house, the absolute humiliation and fear in her eyes. Mrs. Patterson's words echo in my head about how I enabled her behavior for 2 years before destroying her in the most public way possible. I lie in bed that night, trying to figure out if I'm a hero who finally stood up for herself, or a villain who took revenge too far, and the answer feels more complicated than I want it to be. The youth group leader calls me 2 days later asking if I'd be willing to meet with Ranai in his office to try working things out. I want to say no, want to tell him there's nothing left to work out, but I agree because refusing feels like admitting I can't handle facing her. The meeting is scheduled for Thursday after school in his cramped office that smells like old books and coffee. I arrive 5 minutes early and sit in one of the 2 chairs facing his desk, my hands gripping my backpack straps so tight my knuckles turn white. Ranai walks in exactly on time with her mom, who gives me a small sad smile before leaving us alone with the youth group leader. Ranai sits in the other chair as far from me as possible without being obvious about it, still wearing those modest clothes her parents picked out, her face bare of any makeup. The youth group leader starts talking about forgiveness and healing and moving forward, his voice gentle like he's talking to scared animals. Nobody says anything for what feels like forever. Just awkward silence filling the small room while he waits for one of us to speak first. Ranai finally breaks, her voice quiet and shaky when she tells me she's sorry for the push-up bra comment, that she knows it was mean and she shouldn't have said it. Then her voice gets harder and she adds that what I did to her was worse, that I calculated how to hurt her the most, that I destroyed her whole life on purpose while her joke was just a stupid mistake. I feel something hot rise up in my chest and the words come out before I can stop them. I tell her she didn't just make one joke. She watched people bully me for 3 weeks straight, threw tissues at me, grabbed at me, humiliated me every single day while she held Oscar's hand and smiled. I remind her that I covered for her for 2 years, lied to her parents 47 times, risked getting in trouble myself so she could sneak around with boys. My voice gets louder and I can hear it shaking, but I can't stop talking. I tell her she used me as her alibi while lying to everyone including me about Oscar, that she manipulated both of us, that she built her whole relationship with him on making me look bad. The youth group leader tries to interrupt, holds up his hands and says something about both sides having valid feelings, but neither of us is listening anymore. Ranai's crying now, real tears running down her face, and she's saying, I don't understand what it's like having parents who control everything, who won't let her be a normal teenager, who expect her to be perfect all the time. I'm crying too, but for completely different reasons. Crying because she still doesn't get it, still thinks her strict parents excuse everything she did to me. The meeting ends with both of us sobbing, and the youth group leader looking defeated, telling us maybe we need more time before we can have a productive conversation. Ranai leaves first, and I sit there for another 10 minutes trying to pull myself together before facing the parking lot. Oscar texts me that same night saying he broke things off with Ranai officially, that he can't trust someone who lied and manipulated people like that. He asks if maybe we could go see a movie sometime, just as friends to start, nothing serious or romantic. I stare at the message for a long time expecting to feel excited, expecting my heart to race like it would have a month ago, but instead I just feel tired and confused. I text back saying sure, that a movie sounds nice, but sitting there in my room I realize something has shifted inside me. The crush I've carried since 2nd grade suddenly feels different, heavier somehow, like I'm looking at it from the outside instead of living in it. We go to the movie the following Saturday, and Oscar picks me up in his mom's car since he's still grounded from using his own. He's nervous, keeps adjusting the radio and making small talk about school and basketball and the weather. We get popcorn and find seats in the back of the theater, and the whole thing feels nice but not magical, comfortable but not exciting. During the movie, I keep glancing at him in the flickering light and trying to see the boy from the bus, the one who shared fruit snacks and gave me his jacket. But that boy feels like a memory now. Someone who existed a long time ago, and this Oscar sitting next to me is a different person entirely. He's still kind and still makes me laugh. But the spark I always imagined would be there just isn't. Like someone turned off a switch I didn't know was connected to anything real. After the movie, we get ice cream and talk about our favorite scenes, and he reaches across the table like he might hold my hand, but I pretend not to notice and keep eating my ice cream. Driving home, he asks if I had fun, and I say yes because I did. But when he mentions doing it again soon, I make some vague comment about being busy with school. I realize sitting in his passenger seat that I spent 10 years building up this idea of who Oscar was and what being with him would feel like. But the real version doesn't match the fantasy I created. Getting what I thought I wanted doesn't feel like winning. It feels like waking up from a dream and trying to remember why it seemed so important. Maya and Paisley start sitting with me at lunch every single day, and including me in their weekend plans without me having to ask or work for their attention. Maya invites me to her house to watch movies, and we stay up until 2 in the morning talking about everything and nothing. Paisley adds me to her group chat with her other friends, and suddenly I'm part of conversations about music and clothes and stupid funny videos. They tell me when I'm being too hard on myself and call me out when I apologize for things that aren't my fault. Sophie, one of Paisley's friends, mentions that I say sorry way too much and they all agree, start pointing it out every time I do it until I begin catching myself. Nobody keeps score of who paid for coffee last time or who drove or who suggested the plans. Nobody makes me feel like I owe them something for being nice to me. I'm learning what friendship looks like when it's not built on secrets and lies and manipulation. When people actually want you around instead of just using you for cover stories. Ranai and I eventually settle into this cold truce where we're polite in youth group and ignore each other completely at the school. She sits on one side of the church basement and I sit on the other, and we both pretend the other person doesn't exist. One Wednesday night, I'm leaving youth group early to meet Maya, and I overhear Ranai talking to Fletcher near the parking lot. She's telling him how betrayed she feels, how I was supposed to be her best friend, how she can't believe I destroyed her life over one joke. I have to physically stop myself from walking over there and reminding her that she betrayed me first, that she did it repeatedly for 3 weeks while I suffered. Instead, I get in my car and drive away, letting her have her version of the story because arguing won't change anything. My mom corners me in the kitchen one night while I'm making a sandwich and tells me she wants to talk. We sit at the kitchen table and she says she's proud I finally stood up for myself after years of letting people walk all over me. But then her face gets serious and she says she's worried about how I did it, that revenge usually costs more than we expect it to. She asks me if I thought about what would happen to Renai when I made that phone call, if I considered that there might have been better ways to handle the situation. We end up talking for over an hour about the difference between justice and retaliation, about standing up for yourself versus deliberately hurting someone else. I admit that I'm not sure which one I was going for when I called her parents, that in the moment I just wanted her to hurt as much as I was hurting. My mom doesn't tell me I was wrong exactly, just says that sometimes the right thing and the satisfying thing aren't the same, and that growing up means learning to tell the difference. The school counselor starts checking in with me once a month, calling me down to her office during study hall to talk about how I'm doing. At first, I don't want to go, don't want to relive the 3 weeks of bullying or talk about my feelings with a stranger, but she's patient and kind, and eventually I start opening up about the tissue throwing and the bathroom confrontations and the boy who tried to grab me. She helps me understand that what happened to me was genuine harassment, that my body went through real trauma even if some people think it was just joking around. She explains that my response to Ranai, while maybe not the best choice, came from a place of real pain and desperation, that people who are drowning will grab onto anything to save themselves. These conversations help me process everything in a way I couldn't do alone, help me separate what happened to me from what I did in response. Oscar and I fall into this comfortable friendship where we study together sometimes in the library and joke about Mr. Henderson and our old bus rides. The romantic tension that I always imagined would be there just never develops into anything real or lasting. He's dating someone new by spring, a girl from his math class who makes him laugh, and I'm genuinely happy for him instead of jealous. I realize that not every childhood crush needs to become a love story, that sometimes the fantasy version of something is better left as a fantasy. We have closure now in a way we never did before, can be friends without all the what-ifs hanging over us. 6 months after everything exploded at Oscar's house, I'm sitting at lunch with Maya and Paisley and Sophie and actually laughing at something stupid Paisley said about her chemistry teacher. I realize I'm genuinely happy in a way I never was with Renai, that I'm more confident and sure of myself than I've ever been. I speak up in class now when I have opinions, raise my hand and share my thoughts without apologizing first. I tell people no when I don't want to do something instead of just going along to avoid conflict. I notice red flags in how people treat me and I address them instead of ignoring them and hoping they'll go away. Maya comments that I seem different, more sure of myself, and I realize she's right. The girl who let Renai walk all over her for years feels like someone I used to be, someone I've outgrown. Senior year starts, and I'm sitting in college prep class on the first day when Renai walks in and takes a seat 3 rows over. My stomach twists, but I keep my face neutral and focus on the syllabus the teacher is passing around. 2 weeks later, we get assigned to the same group project. 4 people working on a presentation about career planning, and I watch Renai's face when the teacher announces our names together. She looks as uncomfortable as I feel, but neither of us says anything about switching groups. We meet in the library after school, and it's weird in a way I can't quite describe, sitting across from her at a study table like we're strangers who used to know each other really well. She suggests we split up the research topics, and I agree, and we divide the work efficiently without small talk or personal questions. During our second meeting, she makes a joke about the assignment being stupid, and I almost laugh before catching myself, remembering that we're not friends anymore and never will be again. But I don't ignore her either, just nod and say the project requirements are pretty basic. We finish the presentation and present it to the class and get a B+, and that's it. We go back to ignoring each other in the hallways. Looking back now, I don't regret calling her parents that night or standing up for myself after 3 weeks of torture, but I wish I'd handled it differently. Wish I'd tried talking to an adult or confronting her privately instead of destroying her life in front of 30 people. I learned that you can be the victim and still go too far, that being hurt doesn't give you the right to hurt someone else as badly as possible. The whole situation was messy and complicated with no clear good guys or bad guys, just 2 girls who hurt each other in different ways and had to live with the consequences. I'm stronger now, better at setting boundaries and recognizing toxic patterns before they consume me. Sometimes that's the best outcome you can hope for. Not perfect resolution or happy endings, just moving forward as a wiser version of yourself who learned something valuable from the pain.